Hey, what did you talk about this week?
Welcome back to the Corporate Kitchen. I'm your host, Tiger. This week, we've been talking about layoffs, the really doozy topic out of all the episodes we've done so far this year. Layoffs are just not great. The morale associated with them it's just super low. It doesn't really bring people together. It actually divides people sometimes. And again, it's a topic that we do have to talk about because it happens so consistently that it's almost like a normal part of corporate America. If you are just joining corporate, you will experience, maybe not you physically being laid off, but you will experience the corporation go through some level of a layoff, reduction in force type activity. It's almost part of the natural business cycle. I remember when I first experienced a layoff, it was within like the first 4 years of my career, of my professional career. And what happened was the enterprise did not hit their financial goals. Everyone knew it. It was a doozy of an earnings call. Of course, in the earnings call, the officer paint the brightest picture, says that the future is bright, but despite that, we did have current misses. That led to a growing concern of the fallout from that. Then the rumorville, the grapevine got hot. Layoffs are coming. Of course, they're going to do layoffs. Who are they going to lay off? They're going to go after the most tenured people first because they don't go after new, fresh out of college, young professionals. They're going to go after people that's getting paid the most money. The grapevine usually goes crazy. The crazy part is the grapevine is usually right, though. If you ever want to get into the drama, the gossip in your company, try to get involved in the gossip column. It's nothing formal. It's just like high school, information being spread by telephone. The information changes the more communication channels that exist, but the base information is correct. And the base gossip that was happening right after his poor performance year was that there were going to be some layoffs. No one knew the size, no one knew who they were going to go after, but there were going to be layoffs. At the time, I never went through a layoff directly. What do I mean by that? Let's rewind for a second. When I was interning, they actually announced that the facility I was at for my internship was closing and they were moving the work to another facility. I wasn't there for the execution of that facility closure. My internship ended prior to, but I was there for the announcement and the initial emotional response that people had. And that was the basis of knowledge I had going into this first layoff in my professional career, where I was in my internship. They announced that they were closing that facility, and people were visibly upset, emotionally unstable for all the right reasons. And that was a much more significant version of a layoff than just letting some people go. They were closing that whole facility and moving the work, and the facility wasn't close. So it wasn't like, hey, everyone that's working here can just go work at the other facility. You would have to uproot your household, your whole family in order to make that transition. And that was tough for some people. I know it worked out for many of them. And then for a lot of them, I just don't know what happened there. So it was definitely a learning moment to see how business decisions are made and how that impacts employee morale. Fast forward to the story I was just going over. So Rumorville Grapevine says that layoffs are going to happen. This was probably a solid 2 weeks prior to the official announcement. So the official announcement comes out. It's via a email that, hey, we decided that and it's always the same message, right? We have come to the difficult decision after exhausting all other options that we're going to have to do layoffs. There will be more communication that follows. And I remember at that time, I felt I was safe at the company I was at because I was so new. That would have been really weird. This is my processing at the time, right? I thought it would have been really weird for me to get laid off just being hired. I understood based off of the way I was recruited how expensive it is to recruit and hire. That is an expensive endeavor. And by then I went through so many training classes. Like there was a lot of money invested in me. So I'm like, to just throw that all away as a sunk cost didn't make a lot of sense to me. Like that, if it would have happened, I probably would have did a lot of soul searching and try to figure out how corporate America works, but I didn't get laid off. And I think that was, the main reasoning is that I was so new. They had just invested all this money bringing me in. It's kind of a waste to just not let the investment pay off. So the flow-down came from leadership. Then management also gave us the prepare lines that they needed to do. And I remember people just being uneasy. The most common topic, or at least the most common group of people that were the most concerned about being laid off were the most tenured, the people that were already close to retirement. People felt the company were just going to lay those people off. What was interesting and what I learned very quickly, they did 2 rounds of layoffs. They did voluntary and then involuntary. So when they announced layoffs, they did offer people a package that they could raise their hand, take the package, and pretty much, retire or leave the company. And that was my first exposure to voluntary separation. The idea of, hey, here's some money to get you to leave early. And I had a few conversations with some of the hourly people about why that would be advantageous. And then I had a conversation with some salary people as well. I'm like, why would you just take the package instead of, riding the wave? And, multiple answers I got was like, I would rather guarantee the money, guarantee my severance and my health benefits than to be laid off and potentially have nothing or less than what's offered. Usually the voluntary package is a little bit more incentivized to get people to self-volunteer and leave. So if you're close to retirement, it may be the extra boost, the extra money that you were seeking in order to help you make that decision to retire. It's like, never thought about that. Nowhere close to retirement. So I don't know how to evaluate the impact or even assess what would make a good voluntary separation offer. Regardless, I did hear them out and understood, and there were a number of people that were very close to retirement that took that package and left. Then came round 2, the involuntary. I, at this time, did not see any of my peers get walked out. However, since I did have a decent network at the company, we did receive a lot of instant messages of people that were being walked out. And that was when it really hit me what layoffs truly are. That people are just literally packing, or some people didn't even get a chance to opportunity to pack their desk. Some people got the opportunity to pack their desk, take their personal stuff, and then walk out. Other people were like, nope, we will pack your desk for you, send you your personal stuff. And they were just walked out. That is insane to me that you can put your blood, sweat, and tears into a company, and one day your manager just comes down, walks you to the gate, takes your badge, says, "See ya." Insane. That just stinks foul. That stinks to the Chitterlings level. Just horrible. And to go to work that same day, because they do it first thing in the morning. So now you're working the rest of the day hearing all these names of people who were walked out. And I had a meeting set up with one of those people that day that I needed their input. And it's like, what do we do now? Right. It was kind of awkward. And the come to work the next day and they're not there. They're not at the next meeting. It's like, wow. So weird. What's also even more weird of those situations is that I did see a couple of those people come back as contractors. So they got laid off and then they were rehired a couple months later as contractors. And it's like, welcome back. And they make, it's funny for them because they made more money as contractors than they did as salaried employees. So it's just like, haha, so funny. But in my whole career, I've probably seen about 4 layoffs in totality, 1 furlough, and that's a whole nother ball game. And then the facility closure and a acquisition. I've been through probably 3 or 4 acquisitions as well. So all of those events led to some, either directly or indirectly led to some level of reduction in force. And that takes us to our first action. Always be prepared for a layoff. What does that mean? Obviously, the first time you go through a layoff, you need to absorb because you don't really know what's happening. You don't know why it's happening. You got to absorb the situation. Industries handle layoffs kind of differently. Like the tech industry, there's no strong rhyme or reason to who they identify. And a layoff that happens in office is a lot different than what's happening virtually now. You got to be prepared. And the best way to do that is when you go through the first one, absorb as much information as you can specific to that company because the way that they go about it may not be the same way that other companies do. However, if you absorb, spend time learning, you will understand the signs. As we talked about in the kitchen, layoffs are predictable. So if you see the signs, you see that leading indicator that, hey, this tea kettle is making sounds. I can hear the bubbling sound. So it's very close to whistling. You should be prepared for that whistle and already have your cup and your tea bag ready for that boiling water. Same concept applies. You really want to learn the ins and out and understand when is it coming? What does it look like? What does it taste like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? What does it smell like? And be familiar with it so that you know in the future that one's coming. The second part of being prepared is understanding the system and where you stand in it. If it's randomized, then you may have to have a conversation with your boss and figure out where you stand in your performance. If it's very I don't want to use the term systematic, but if there is a methodology and like a very distinct, discrete methodology that's applied, that's predictable to the level of like, okay, I understand who they're going to lay off, then you should be able to calculate whether or not you're going to be affected. And if you are, then you need to start looking for a new job ASAP. Or maybe you just don't want to deal with it and you don't want to find a job. Or I'm sorry, you want to find a job and not have to deal with it. I was part of an acquisition that happened. And around that time, there was a reduction in force. There was one person that I knew who basically was like, I don't want to deal with this. I'm going to find bigger and better for me. And this person did. They found a bigger and better job. And then they raised their hand at the current job. It was like, hey, we're having a reduction in force. You can voluntarily lay me off. So they laid them off. And due to the voluntary package, there was some compensation involved and some severance, which allowed this person to pretty much take a vacation and not be able to worry about, working for a little bit and then start the new job afterwards. I mean, that's a pretty cool gig, in my opinion, pretty cool system. Be careful in that regard because there are rules specific to companies on what your severance package entails and what you can and cannot do. So obviously this one was fine, but there are instances where companies are about their company and it's like, hey, if you're starting another job, we're not paying you severance. But it was able to work out for this person where they were able to do that. And I thought it was pretty cool and definitely a good setup. But it goes to show that because that person was prepared, they saw the signs and they were able to react accordingly and put themselves in the best position. The second action in regards to layoffs that you have to take is to be positive. Normally, if we're having layoffs, that means the business is in a doozy. The business is down. We're not doing great. Morale is probably already in the toilet, like straight in the garbage disposal with it running on because things are not great. There's enough negative energy that already exists during that period of time. There's no reason to add to it. The positivity sandwich, you don't even have to worry about the negative meat in the middle, right? Where they're like, positivity sandwich, tell me something good, then tell me something bad, then tell me something good again. Don't even worry about the negative meat in the middle. Just go full positivity bread. Try to be as positive as possible, be as light as possible because the darkness is just already there. I remember I was at another company and they were having layoffs and we knew that the layoffs were coming because we were already on furloughs. So the furlough was announced when basically you work for free. They deduct your pay by a certain amount, or they say, you work Monday through Friday, but you don't get paid for those days. Crazy concept of just putting in hours and knowing you're not getting paid for it because the whole company's taking a pay cut. And you see a lot of frustration with people in regards to furlough specifically when they start digging into like how much executives and CEOs get paid. Because it's like, CEO just gives up their bonus and that probably pays for everyone's furloughs. And furloughs is usually a good intermediate step to avoid, I shouldn't say good, I'm sorry. Furloughs is usually an intermediate step to avoid having layoffs. We had furloughs and then we still had layoffs. It's like you did the intermediate step to do your best to avoid it. And people are already disgruntled by it. Then you still proceed to do a reduction in the employee base. And it's like, I roll, right? And due to the furloughs, people are already upset because now they're putting in hours and not getting paid for it. And then on top of that, now you have the proposition that they could potentially lose their job. Obviously, no one was feeling great. No one was happy. A lot of frustration and negative energy was built around the company. And all the leaders there, they tried their best. It was an impossible situation to be in as a manager, trying to keep the morale of your team high, but at the same time, get the feedback from your leadership that's like, hey, you're going to work more hours, but you're not going to get paid for it. Oh, and by the way, I need a list of people we need to lay off. Like, I just don't understand how it almost appears like soulless that companies can be. And you'll hear a lot of people say you're just a number at your company. And it's so true that the assessments made feel like they make no sense sometimes, and they're just doing it for the sake of doing it. And the irony of the whole situation is we went through furloughs, then we went through layoffs and lost a lot of people. And within like 2 months, we're hiring people again. The most confusing cycle ever. That's like we had to take all these pay cuts that were necessary to support the company. We needed to reduce our force just to bring in a force. Mind you, they went with the cheaper force as we hired, college students and whatnot. But the premise of and the whole idea of having a layoffs is because the business is down bad. But then you're showing, hey, there's light because we're going to hire people. And it's like, no, it's the same business quarter. We never got out of the red. We're still red. We have not reached the black yet. It's blood red. So how are we undoing what we just addressed and tried to mitigate with the layoff? So morale was definitely in the toilet. I probably was one of those people that contributed to the negative energy I wasn't probably. I was definitely one of those people that contributed to the negative energy and was not appreciative of the actions and the standings that the company was taking at the time. So I did get some good coaching and feedback on staying positive and how to stay positive. It's definitely hard, and honestly, one of the hardest periods of your career to stay positive. And, think of it from this perspective too. What if you're the manager having to walk out one of your best employees, having to have a conversation with someone that you've gotten to know on a personal level and tell them that they're no longer going to be employed and you need to walk them out? It's definitely a very tough situation. People will always recommend that you separate business and personal, but if you see these people every day, I mean, you'll get to know them personally and you'll have an emotional connection with them. And it's heartbreaking to be able to have to sever that on a business level and be the one that has to do that. It's one thing if you're working in different groups, you know them personally, and their manager had to lay them off and walk them out. That's one end. It's another end when you know them personally, got to know them, think they're great, have an emotional connection to them, and you have to be the one to walk them out and in their professional time at that company. Not a good feeling at all. Not at all. And I applaud all the leaders that are listening to this podcast that have to do that, for the sense of, not because you did that, I'm applauding you for going through something that's really difficult and still being here. I mean, you're not ever going to get a manager that's like, I'm going to quit my job because I have to lay these people off. There might be one out of every like 10,000, but most managers are going to go through it and then they're going to feel it. It will take an emotional toll on most people. And it's like, wow, that really sucks. It's a bad day. I need a drink. And, I keep your head up the best that you can. It's a really hard thing. And I'm very sad that you have to go through that. But got to pick yourself up. Got to keep moving, right? This is a different type of introductions. I'm not introducing myself as a great person today. It's a bad person today. And I got to look in the mirror and say, I did it and got to keep going. And it sucks. It's not great, but life moves on. A lot of times for the person that got laid off, it's better. The person that gets laid off, you end up, one, learning about corporate America and how you're just a number, an employee number to the company. But two, I hear so many stories. Mind you, it could be the minority, but just because, I'm hearing about it, it could be the minority. But it's really good to hear of people having more success and better opportunity because they're forced to find it, where they're laid off of company A and it's like, okay, I thought I was really in love with that company and it was going to be my forever. I thought I was going to marry that company. Find out where it's like, oh, I got a new hot thing, right? And now I can really spread my wings further and find out the grass is greener and things are better. Most people are going to say that all of corporate America is the same, which is why nowadays we see people hopping companies so frequently because the loyalty is not there and the longevity isn't there. So most layoffs are possibly a blessing in disguise for you so that you can move on to greater pastures. If the company is down bad, they probably don't have the leadership to right that ship. So you find the ship that's right for you. And that's what it comes down to. Be in that kitchen that best suits you, where you can be your best chef and succeed in everything that you do. The last action and related to layoffs, and it's kind of almost like a second part to the second one to be positive, is support your friends. Support your friends. And the first friendship that you have to consider when you support your friends is the relationship that you have with yourself, the friendship that you have with yourself. When layoffs are announced, self-preservation kicks in. I remember when I was at a company that they announced that they were having involuntary separation. And the first thing that came through my mind was, okay, I've been through this 3 times already. I need a backup plan, a just in case plan. I don't think that there's any chance they will lay me off, but if they did, I have no idea what I would do. I feel like I would be starting from scratch and ground zero. And in my mind, I'm like, let's take some steps so that in the event that I am laid off, I'm not starting from ground zero. I at least have gotten through and put some seeds out there. May not be planet water given sunlight, but the seeds are there. And maybe for a couple areas, I put it on top of the ground. Maybe not pushed it in the ground, but I put it on top of the ground and I say, hey, we have a seed there in order to get ahead of the game. When layoffs normally happen, everyone's doing the same thing. They're looking for a new job, which means competition can be fierce sometimes in order to find that next opportunity. The pre-work that you can do to get ahead in order to ensure your self-preservation, critical. Name of the game is what? CYA. If you don't know what CYA is, it's cover your, and you can finish the last word. Name of the game, CYA. And it's fully active at times of layoffs. Mind you, we're not trying to burn people, which is why we're saying support your friends, right? You want to support as many people as possible. You don't want to burn the bridges and burn other people. But the first friendship that you have to consider when you support your friends is the relationship that you have with yourself, the friendship that you have with your own body. Consider it an out-of-body, in-body friendship. Make sure that you take care of yourself and that you're in a position to succeed. In that event where I laid down seeds on the ground, didn't push them in the dirt, but at least laid there. There came a point when I decided to just have a conversation with my boss and see what was going on and kind of indirectly figure out where my ranking was as far as performance and talent wise in the group to make sure like I wasn't on the layoff list. And it finally came out. It's like, you're not on that list. And I'm like, oh, okay. Now I can breathe. Now I know that the seeds that I put out don't need to be planted, but it was also a good opportunity to make the evaluation of like, okay, if business is down and we're having layoffs, do I actually need to plant one of those seeds and figure out if the grass is going to be greener? I did the assessment and ultimately decided not to, but it was the opportunity that I took to support my first friend of myself. Then the second part is all your other friends too, right? The people that you've developed emotional connections with, who you would consider colleagues or who you're friends with outside of work. If you are friends with that person outside of work and one of you gets laid off, you're never going to hear the end of it. So make sure you provide the emotional support to that person as much as possible. What's very interesting about layoffs is that people panic. people panic. And it's a combination of people who they would never lay off in the million years, that has been through multiple layoffs, and you're like, why are you even concerned? Like, this, of all people in the world, they would never, like, I would be laid off before you're laid off. So, like, chill out. And then there are those people that's like, I understand. I understand why you may be concerned, because I don't know. I don't know. I'm right there with you. I'm not sure what's going to happen there. And that panic could lead to a change in the performance level for them, and not performing or overperforming during a time when the company is trying to identify who's going to exit the company is not a good first step, right? You want to be your best self. You need to be pretty much beyond thriving in your role during this period of time, because you don't want them to use that as an opportunity to put you on the list and identify you as someone that they should cut. A lot of companies do layoffs differently. So whether they pull from historical data or current data, I can't say or give that recommendation to. You just know that when you first get that sign of, hey, it's coming, right? Like, you take out your steak, you salt it, you butter it, whatever you want, you know that that pan should already have oil on it and be warming up. It should be warming up. It's coming. The steak is coming. So you prepare accordingly. So support your friends. Let them know how they feeling. No, I'm sorry. See how they're feeling. Let them know how you feel about the situation so that they can support you as well. And we're all in this together. What's very cool about the workforce today is that people tend to help other people in dire situations. So if a group of people get laid off, they may all jointly go to another company and help each other get into a new company. So there's power in numbers, there's power in collaboration and connectivity to use the network, use the people that you know to better your odds and better yourself, regardless of what ends up happening and the decisions that are being made. Also, emotional support goes a lot further than what people think. People tend to remember when you were there for them, and emotionally more so than physically. If you helped me on the project and got me through a project, that's one thing. But if I was emotionally unstable and you helped me get to stability, that has a more direct and really foundational effect on people than the you helped me on a project type thing. People do remember that, and the appreciation for the emotional support is high and goes both ways. You will feel it. You'll feel better about yourself giving that positivity out there and being there for someone, and they'll feel it too, receiving it and knowing that someone's there for them. It's not the end of the world. They can convert some of that negative pessimism to optimism, positive energy. Positive energy bleeds more positive energy, and we need a lot more in the workforce. It gets such a somber time. It becomes such a somber time during layoffs that there are some people that you're like, okay, I absolutely can't talk to you because you're going to tell me that the world's ending. And it really isn't, because layoffs were announced like for 3 months from now, and we're at day one. Like, the world's not ending. Everything's going to be okay. And then you have those people that are just, like I mentioned earlier, the panic orders that are just like, I'm going to be laid off. And it's like, you've been at the company for 25 years and you're not even close to retirement and you're the subject matter expert. Like, if they lay you off, this company doesn't run. So I also need you to chill out, and being the emotional support for them, they will appreciate that and recognize it and remember it. You are your own best cheerleader, but to add a team of cheerleaders to cheer, right? You are your own best cheerleader, but if it comes with a team, other people helping you cheer yourself on. Boom. Can you imagine? Full 12 team, team of 12 cheerleaders all cheering you on, saying you're going to be fine, you're going to do great, will make you feel more confident in the situation than you trying to give yourself a pep talk because you know yourself and you know the situation that you're in. So whole team does it. Ooh, okay, I feel good. And now I'm ready to bring that positive energy back into the workplace and make sure I'm thriving. Because at the end of the day, layoffs does not create a thriving environment. You have to create yourself to a thriving position by just being prepared, staying positive, and supporting your friends. And at the end of the day, layoffs can be a blessing in disguise again. It could be the best thing that could happen to you, and it could lead you to better pastures. Last story before I wrap this up, and it'll be really quick story. So I was at a company and there were like 5 or 6 people that were super close to retirement, and they supported each other through every single layoffs, and they were all around the same age. They're like, we're all in this together type of thing. So one year there was an announcement of a voluntary separation package, and they were the most excited group of people ever because they're like, boom, I'm 2 years away from retirement. I'm going to take this package. I am done. Sayonara, arrivederci, have fun. And of that group of like 6 or 7 people, only half of them wanted to take the package. And the other half were like, I think I can ride it out a little bit. And it was funny watching the dynamic because they all support each other. They knew each other for a very long time, like decades, right? And again, they were all in it together. They're all going to walk out together. So to see the split of some of them like, hey, I'm going to stay here. And other people are like, no, like it's time. Get up. We're out. We're calling it. We're all going to walk out together. It created a little bit of friction because there was a little bit of animosity of the people that already submitted their names to be on the voluntary separation list. And obviously it's like, you can't give back. You can't be like, oh, I'm just kidding. I don't want to be on the list anymore. I mean, you can do that, but by the time you submit your name, they're like, got it. Okay, check, you'll get your package. And not knowing if the people that decided to stay and ride it out will actually get laid off or if they will continue. Because obviously, if they could stay for the 2 years, they would. They were concerned that they were going to get put on the list, so why not just take the advantageous package and hop out? That was the plan, right? It was a very good package. They said it will take care of them and close the gap between layoff date and when their actual desired retirement date was. And that was the motivation enough to get them to walk out. So half of them took the package and the other half stayed. But then the other half ended up getting involuntarily laid off. So they all ended up pretty much kicking the bucket out of the company together. Half of them voluntary, the other half involuntary. And all of them were very happy. They weren't mad at each other at the end of the day as much as they were mad at the company and how, in their opinion, how the layoffs were handled and how some of them ended up voluntary, some of them ended up involuntary. But at the end of the day, they all got the validation of like, okay, we made the right decision to leave and be on that voluntary list because, or at least for the people that didn't raise their hand to put it on there, the assessment of being on the voluntary separation list was correct at that time because they were truly at risk as they thought they were of being laid off. And they were happy. They're happy in retirement. I haven't kept up with, I didn't know like all 7 very well. I knew like 2 or 3, 1, 2, 2 very well. And I knew that in office they were close and they hung out after work and stuff and they knew each other. They knew each other's kids and whatnot. So they were emotionally connected to each other. I don't know today if they still keep in touch and how they're doing, but I know at least like 2-3 years after the fact, they were still pretty close and thoroughly enjoying retirement. So it's a beautiful thing to have the camaraderie of close friends and the support there in all phases of life. So make sure you truly get that from your colleagues, both in the office and out the office. It really comes down to having that power of love, power of friendship, power of emotional support to get you through hard times. It almost reminds me of,
Hey, you said last story. Can you wrap this up?
Oof. Okay. I enjoyed working on this menu item with you this week, but let's come to an end while it's still hot. Remember, the ending to one story is the beginning of another. There will be more in store next week at the Corporate Kitchen. Thanks for listening. I'm your host, Tiger. Until next time.